Yes, indeed. So I'm going to start with a little bit of more general information about the fellowships and then to get deep into the particulars of this call. So for all of us to be clear, the objective of the civil society fellowships is to support civil society activists to demonstrate, activists who can demonstrate a deep commitment to leading positive social change. So we're there to support you. And that includes, I put here, IT experts, because digital solutions are also a way to bring about positive social change. The fellowships build the fellows' capacity to constructively engage with communities and authorities and to contribute to reforms in the EAP. So, what's important here is to note that the fellowship scheme is not a grant scheme for organizations. It's for individuals. It's for individual activists. And anyone who is successful to be awarded a fellowship will get the same benefits. So the benefits of being a fellow are that you will get about 5,000 euros in financial support to implement a fellowship project. You will get training and coaching support. You will get opportunities to go to events and networking events, and you will become a lifelong member of our fellowship alumni. So it is not just about the financial support for doing a fellowship project. There are all these other benefits of being a fellow. And if you look back over the last 8 years since the fellowship program started, you will see that we have quite a diverse kind of track record in the types of fellowship projects that have been supported. So we don't discriminate in any one particular sector. So all kinds of themes and functionality within fellowships have been possible. And as you can see from the graphics, our fellows are spread out across all of the six Eastern Partnership countries. Not surprisingly, countries with larger populations have the largest number of fellows. But the opportunity is there for every citizen of the six Eastern Partnership countries. But you can also see from these graphics that the fellowship scheme is very competitive. Over 8 years, we received nearly 2,000 applications, and we've only been able to award 234 fellowships. So less than 15% of all the applications are actually successful. So you joining this information session, we hope will be very useful for you, and it will help you to make a more competitive application. So that's the general information, and as Olga has already mentioned, you can look a lot more on our website and our social media. Now I want to get on to talk the particulars of this call, the Fellowship Without Borders. This is something a little bit new for the fellowship scheme, and we're offering a dimension to the fellowship program which we haven't done before. The reason we're doing this is that, as you're all aware, the context across the six countries in the region has dramatically changed in the last few years. And therefore, we hope that this scheme is a way to respond to the challenges which are faced by civil society activists from the Eastern Partnership countries who find themselves outside their countries and with limited civic engagement opportunity. But they are activists who perhaps you have opportunities to be active in other countries. But the scheme is also for those within Eastern Partnership countries who are interested to build bridges with activists in other countries and to learn from them and to import any good practices back to their own country. So this call, the Fellowship Without Borders, has introduced this element of mobility that hasn't existed to such an extent in the other calls we've had. Now, you will need to follow carefully the guidelines, as we will repeatedly stress throughout this webinar. You need to look at the guidelines and to look carefully at the wording of what is possible and not possible within this call. So here now on the screen, these are the key bits of text from the guidelines which relate to defining what a Fellowship Without Borders is. When you make your application, you absolutely must demonstrate that you are committed to leading or contributing to positive social change in your community and for the benefit of your community. You have to demonstrate this across your application, whether that's in some answering some of the questions or in the information you provide in the CV. We will come on to the different elements of the application form in a while, but there's plenty of opportunity to demonstrate this compulsory element. Then you have to also demonstrate one of these two aspects to your application, or you can demonstrate both of them. So as an applicant, you have to explain how a learning activity in another country will be used to strengthen the work that you do, your engagement with your communities and all the authorities. Now, as this is the first time we've run this particular call, we don't have lots of examples to share with you. However, we do have previous fellows who have done some similar things to this. So to give you an example here to illustrate what this might be, in the past we had a fellow who went on a study visit to the Netherlands in order to study how local authorities implement environmental protection. And the fellow learnt from that country, came back to her own country, and then did a series of activities to help her local authorities to onboard these practices that she'd learnt about in the Netherlands. So this is one choice that you have, that you need to develop a fellowship which will have a learning activity in it in another country, which you can demonstrate that you will then use for the benefit of your community. Or an alternative, or this is something that you can do as well as, so it's and or, you will need to make your application and demonstrate that you will support your fellow citizens active in civil society in another country to contribute to policy dialogue or advocacy on behalf of your community, wherever it might be situated. Again, I can give a little example from some of our previous fellows. There's someone who did something like this. We had a fellow who was able to support an expert group, a group of experts from her country who were outside of the country in exile. And the fellow supported this group to do research and to report on, to produce a shadow report on the country's progress towards the Sustainable Development Goals. So this is an example of the kind of fellowship project that you might be able to do that would fit this second criteria. So when you're thinking about your application for this call, you have to bear in mind these elements. So the top one is compulsory, and then you have to have one or the other or both of these other two. There's a lot more information on this in the guidelines, so we again strongly recommend that you have a look to understand what these mean. Now, during this information session, we don't want to be too prescriptive. We're not here to tell you what you should do. You know your community, you know better about what you might be able to do. However, we do want to try to give you some ideas to illustrate the types of activities that might be possible within a fellowship under this call. So I'm going to give you some examples of indicative activities. So for example, if you have a fellowship where your objective relates to advocacy or you have a policy or objective, it will be reasonable for you to design activities based on collecting evidence, doing research, getting experts to help you draft a policy paper, making recommendations to decision makers. Maybe you want to get involved in doing some kind of advocacy campaign on these issues of public concern. So you might have these kinds of activities if you have an objective which is based on advocacy. If you want to achieve some capacity building objectives, then we would expect you to have activities which reflect that. So this might be learning about different methodologies of ways that your organization might be organized or can work. You might learn that from an organization in another country and then bring it back to your own organization and then do like a training of trainers to share the knowledge. So any kinds of training or learning activities would be acceptable within the fellowships. Or it might be that you want to go on a job shadowing to join an organization in another country and to do job shadowing in that organization and then bring back the knowledge to your organization. Or it might be that you are associated with an organization which could host others to come and learn from your organization. For example, if you happen to be in Moldova and you happen to be involved in a successful social enterprise, there might be those in Azerbaijan who would be interested to come to your organization to learn about how you do that social enterprise. So the job shadowing or doing kind of study visits to different organizations, you might be hosting such a visit, or you might be the person going on doing the job shadowing. So they're examples, just some ideas of activities around building capacity. It might be that you're more interested in kind of widening your stakeholder engagement, trying to help your organization or other organizations to be more sustainable and more diverse in the way it gets resources. And because of that, you're interested to learn how do other organizations in other countries diversify their income streams for their organization? How do the different organizations in Europe encourage philanthropy or develop relationships with the business sector? This might be an area that you're interested in. And it might be that you have an interest to help civil society organizations in your community to provide services which are more tailored to the particular needs of a community. And then you might also want to use this fellowship call to achieve an objective around coalition building and building up solidarity and cooperation with like-minded activists or like-minded organizations in other countries. So you could use this fellowship call to have activities where you develop more better, stronger relationships with organizations, either in other Eastern Partnership countries or in countries in the EU member states or in some of the other EU partner countries. It might be that you're interested in some kinds of activities where you are trying to look at how civil society organizations can better work with each other across different sectors. So, for example, how community-based organizations might work more effectively with trade unions and professional associations, or how you might want to work with business associations. And again, there's a wealth of knowledge and experience on this in the member states. So you might want to visit the member states and bring that knowledge back to your country. So these are just some of the possible indicative kinds of activities that you would do under a community engagement fellowship. But there might be many of you who are more interested to look at developing or scaling up digital tech solutions for your community. So Iryna is going to talk through a few ideas on that track. Iryna.
Thank you so much, Simon. Just a quick introduction, as Olga mentioned, my name is Iryna Velska. I'm the one who is responsible for civic tech activities, civic tech track within the project in general, and it includes the hackathons and the civic digital fellowships. When it comes to civic digital fellowships, our new type of this fellowship called this Fellowship Without the Borders might create the most challenging for you, because it's on the first sight, it's more difficult to imagine what could be done, but I would like to share with you a couple of actual real examples. The one of the things is that if you work in tech, in IT, or you kind of related to this, you all heard of that things which is called localization and replication. So these are the two terms that are often related when it comes to bringing some existing great, in our case, civic tech solutions into the local market and to the local users. And this is exactly what is eligible within the kind of an example of the activities, civic tech activities eligible within the Fellowship Without the Borders. So what is the difference? Localization means that you do not change the code of the solution. You take the existing solution and just adjust the interfaces, sometimes some of the smaller things. For instance, like the name of the regions, you translate it to the local language and so on, so that users, your target users from your community, from your home country or from a specific area, because we also have the dialects there, can use this international solution or regional solution for their own purposes. Second option is replication, is when you actually take an existing solution as an example of what works in other countries. This can be EU member state, this can be more international, general, or this can be another EAP country, and use the code. Sometimes it is available on request, and create a similar solution. I just give you two examples here. In 2021, we ran Adapt an App Sprint. That was all about the replication. Here is the link. You can check on this. And here are the two solutions, for instance, that we created in exactly the same way, using the codes from those solutions that were created with EU support, and recreating them, replicating them for the needs of the specific countries. You can also use the experience, especially if you're based outside of your home country and you are based outside of the community, but you work there closely, and you have a very specific experience from your being exposed to other opportunities and tools and stack to create a solution for your home country or for your community. For instance, so we have a fellow who is normally based in Romania. He's Moldovan. He is normally based in Romania and working on IT and civic tech also in Romania, but he created specific digital solutions for the needs of the Moldovan citizens. This is another example when you use your experience from outside of the country. Another one is, and this also falls under the track of the civic digital. It's when you work with open data. In this case, we mean data sets, not just regular information available, but specific data sets. And for instance, you can collect or make it machine readable, the data sets from your community or about your community to the international community, so for the use of this for the analytical research and so on purposes, or vice versa, when you take the data that is international, but make it available again in a machine readable form for the needs of your community. These are just three examples. Please, I hope it's just gonna help you thinking about this. I just encourage you again to check through our fellows, through the database of our fellows, and also check through the bank of ideas, which is available on our and apply. I also would like to take the opportunity and talk about the two types of it. So once you start the application process, you will see that you have two types of the applications. One of that called civic digital application, and the other is a community engagement application form. While to 90% they are alike, and it's not a crime if you start filling in the wrong one, we're going to adjust it and we're going to understand you. We do encourage you to use the civic digital application form only if you have a civic tech solution in mind or going to work with open data. Why? Because there are a few questions, specifically three, that are going to puzzle you, and you won't be able to provide a meaningful answer to if you don't have a technical solution. You won't be able to explain the technical implementation, the stack you're using. You won't be able to explain the functions and how you're going to work with doing the user acquisition and retention. With this being said, Simon, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Super. Thank you very much, Ira. And as Iryna has just said, it makes sense to choose the right kind of application form. But if you don't, if you choose the wrong one, you can still submit your application and it will be evaluated in the same way. So you shouldn't worry too much about it. I'm now going to talk about issues to do with eligibility. Who is eligible for the fellowship scheme? What kinds of activities or locations for activities are eligible, and what costs might be eligible. To start with the basic things, here on the screen is a simple kind of checklist about you as a potential fellow. If you can tick all these boxes, then the chances are you will be a good candidate to be a civil society fellow. So you have to be a citizen of one of the six Eastern Partnership countries. You have to have a good level of English because joining the fellowship scheme is about joining an international community. And in order to benefit from the networking and the learning opportunities as a civil society fellow, you need to have English to communicate with the other fellows and other experts who might be there to help you. So we really do ask that you have a good working knowledge of English. When we come to look at the application form, you'll see that there's a request for you to demonstrate, to provide some proof of your level of English, and we'll talk a bit more about that in a short while. Thirdly, there is no maximum age. You can be any age you like, but you have to be more than 18 years old. So the fellowships, you have to be 18 and above. Unfortunately, any of you who are listening and have already joined our alumni of fellows, you cannot make another application. You can't be awarded twice. But for those who are looking at this for the first time, another really important eligibility criteria is that you have a proven track record. If you remember at the beginning of the presentation, we mentioned that the civil society fellowships are for those people who can demonstrate a commitment to contributing or leading social change in their communities. You need to prove that, and mostly it is through what you provide in your CV that you will be requested to add to your application. But there are also questions in the application form which kind of challenge you on your track record and your capacity. So this is really important. And then, of course, lastly, you need to have a really good idea for a fellowship project. So this is the criteria, eligibility criteria for you as the applicant. But you also need to be thinking about the eligibility of activities. Now, on the whole, as we've already shown to you, that fellows can actually carry out all kinds of activities. We're a really diverse program and we support all kinds of activities. So the best thing to do is to read the guidelines and to take note of the activities which are not eligible. It's much easier to tell you what is not eligible than to go through everything that is. So things here on this slide, you'll see the bottom, there are 3 bullet points. These come from the guidelines. The fellowships will not support actions which are just about procurement or buying supplies. So the fellowships is not for that purpose. The fellowships can't be used to support political parties or candidates or to support any military bodies. And the fellowships also cannot be used to just carry out activities that your organization might do as its normal part of its work. Okay, so these are the 3 actions which are absolutely not eligible. All other activities will be eligible. And then in terms of who benefits from your work as a fellow, who are the beneficiaries of your fellowship projects? These must also be citizens of the Eastern Partnership countries. Even if you're outside of the Eastern Partnership countries and you're doing some training, for example, you cannot use your fellowship to train French citizens or citizens of Malta. Okay, we want the beneficiaries to be the citizens of the Eastern Partnership countries. And I mentioned a couple of the countries there, and because a new dimension of this call is about mobility, giving you the opportunity to do activities in other countries or to go to other countries to learn some good practices. For this call, you can see that there are a lot of countries where activities can be carried out. Put simply, these are the 6 countries of the Eastern Partnership. They're all the countries which the EU refers to as candidate countries, and they are all of the EU member states. Now, this list is in the guidelines. It's very simple. If the country is not on this list, you can't do the activity there. So from time to time, we get people who ask, is it okay for me to do some activity in the United Kingdom or in USA or Norway or Switzerland? Because these are countries often associated with activities around Europe. But for this call, you cannot. These are the only countries which are eligible. So please take note of this when you're thinking about designing your fellowship, where you might look for potential partners, organizations that might help you with your fellowship. These are the countries where you need to be targeting. When it comes to costs, the fellowships will cover the costs of implementing your activities. So this can include the travel and accommodation for you as a fellow or for those associated with your project beneficiaries. The costs of promotional activities and visibility can be covered by the fellowship. Fees that you might need to pay to experts or to designers, to mentors. These are eligible costs. If you're traveling and there's a consular fee, the budget can also pay for that. Likewise, insurance and administrative charges like banking costs and very limited amounts of overheads. So these are the eligible costs. And again, it's actually easier to emphasize what is not eligible. Because the Civil Society Fellowships is a voluntary activity of fellows. So it's fellows voluntarily contributing their community. This means that under the fellowship program, fellows cannot pay themselves a salary. They cannot pay themselves a fee. Okay? So fellows cannot receive any fee at all from the fellowship project budget. Also, because many fellows are associated with organizations or are even staff members of an organization, you cannot use your fellowship project budget to make a payment for a mentor who might be your boss in your organization or your superior. Okay, so you can't pay somebody who is your superior in your workplace as part of the fellowship. And then lastly, also, mostly you can't use the fellowship budget for purchasing equipment. On occasions, if it's necessary, it is possible to use the budget to rent equipment, but not generally for purchasing equipment. And of course, anyway, the budgets are really, really quite small for fellowships. I've mentioned already that the financial value is about €5,000. So that's really not much money. So you have to think carefully about what could be possible within your fellowship. Okay, that's on eligibility, and there's a lot more in the guidelines. Please follow it. And now I just want to talk about the process, your process of making an application. So for the 10th time in the webinar, I'm going to tell you, you have to read the guidelines. That should be your first step. It's only 16 pages. Read them all. Develop your fellowship idea. And for this particular call, the deadline for submissions is quite far away. It's the 11th of September. So you have quite a lot of time to develop your proposal, to make your application. So use the time, don't rush your time, develop your fellowship idea. And it might be particularly difficult if you need to build up a partnership or look for a supporter in another country. Those kinds of arrangements can take time to develop. And if you're reaching out to an organization that is new to you, you need to make sure that you can trust the organization, that they feel it's the right organization for you to support you and help you. So you might need to follow up on references about an organization if you don't know them. So you need to take time to look for partners and potential supporters in other countries. When you're ready, we would like you to submit your application online, and you'll find in the guidelines and on our social media and the website the link to enter the online application form. It's quite a simple form. I'm going to go through it in a minute. I would recommend that you log in and have a look at the application form, because you can look through the application form as long as you do not press the submit button at the end. At the end of the process, where you submit your application, once your application form is submitted online, you cannot change it. Until you submit, you can log on and log off several times and come back to your application form. So I recommend you do that just so you can see the questions that are being asked and what you have to, the information you need to provide, and also to see the supporting documents that you need to provide. Once your application is complete and you're happy with it, you've uploaded all of the supporting documents, then that is the moment that you press the submit button, and then we will be receiving your application. If there are issues with your application, if we have a look and there's something we don't quite understand, we need to clarify something with you, we will come back to you and we'll ask for clarification. So again, if you're worried that you're using the wrong application form, don't worry too much. We will still receive your application. We can come back to you with questions of clarification. Then there will be an evaluation period, and we hope by December that we'll be making the awards for those under this call who will become fellows. So the application form itself has these 6 main components. The first part, there are some questions where we want to learn about your experience and your motivations. The second part is questions where we ask you, what is the issue that you want to address through your fellowship? What is the problem that you want to deal with? Thirdly, then you need to be able to present to us a very clear and achievable objective. And again, I will stress that the fellowships projects are quite limited in what they're able to achieve. We expect the activities to be completed within a 6-month period. So that's quite a short period. And you only have a maximum of €5,000 to fund activities in your fellowship project. So these are quite restrictive. So you need to have a very focused, a very clear objective statement in your application. Then in the application form, you need to briefly describe the activities and what will be the measurable outputs from those activities. Fifthly, you'll need to be telling us who will be involved, who will be helping you in your fellowship, who will be the beneficiaries of your fellowship. And then lastly, we ask you to upload a budget, an activity plan, and a communication plan as well. You can find the templates for those within the guidelines and within the application form itself. So you'll be able to download those templates, fill in your budget, fill in your activity plan, and then go back to the application form and upload those supporting documents. In addition to that, it's obligatory for you to upload a CV, because we need to see your track record. We need to see who you are, what work you've been involved in. Even if you're very young and don't have very much experience, we know that most activists are experienced, have some experience even when they're teenagers or even younger. So we need that in your CV. It's no good uploading a CV using the same CV where you're applying for a job in the private sector, because that'll be selling yourself to the private sector in a different way. We want to see what your civic activities are in your CV. So please make sure that you update your CV to demonstrate to us your experience, your capacities for civic activism. You also will need to upload some proof of your level of English. Again, in the guidelines, we give information about what kinds of documents would be suitable. It might be certificates you've got, formal certificates for your language skills. It might be that you have studied in an institute where English was the working language. If you have some document which demonstrates that, that would be acceptable. It might be that you don't have any formal qualification, but you use English for your job in your work. Therefore, you could ask your employer to give you a recommendation letter to justify, to confirm the level of your English. So go to the guidelines. There is something there which tells you about how you can prove your level of English. You also need to upload something which proves your citizenship of one of the six Eastern Partnership countries, and a recommendation letter. We want you to include a recommendation letter. Now, that might be a recommendation from someone in the civic sector who knows your civic activities. It might be somebody who has employed you and can say wonderful things about what you're like as a worker and the values that you have. It might be if you work in IT, if you're working on tech solutions, it might be someone who's employed you to produce those solutions, those digital solutions, and that will be a good recommendation letter. There's also opportunity to upload other supporting documents if you think it helps to strengthen your application, but those other ones are not obligatory. And then lastly, in terms of filling the application form in, you always have to remember that this is a competitive process, that there's going to be an evaluation committee reading your applications, and the evaluation committee will be scoring, making an evaluation based on this evaluation grid, which is copied from the guidelines. So I would highly recommend that you use this evaluation grid yourself to guide yourself in how you answer the questions in the application form and the information that you put into that application form. So you can see that you can score a maximum of 10 points in terms of your experience and your motivation to be an applicant. In terms of the purpose of your proposed Fellowship Without Borders project, there's a maximum score of 15. So this is where you'll be evaluated in terms of the relevance of the project and the extent to which it is needed and that it's relevant, the extent in which you have experience or competence to deal with the issue that you say you're going to, and the likelihood that the fellowship project will actually lead to some kind of positive change. So these are the points where we will be scoring. And then lastly, there's a maximum of 25 points that you can earn from the way in which you design your fellowship project. So the evaluation committee will look at your statement, your objective statement, and will look at the activities to achieve that objective. So the evaluation committee will make a decision about whether is the objective clear and can the objective be achieved by implementing the activities which you're proposing. The evaluation committee will also look at the expected outputs to make an understanding of whether they are relevant and whether they're realistic and to the extent at which they might be sustainable. There's also an evaluation of the beneficiaries and the other stakeholders involved, as well as the quality of your communication plan, your proposed communication activities, and the extent to which your budget is well developed and realistic and justified. So this evaluation grid is very clear. When you're getting to that point where you feel comfortable that your application is nearly ready for submission, I would recommend that you use this grid to score yourself on your application. Even better, find a colleague, find a friend, someone who knows you and who knows what you're proposing to do. Ask them to evaluate your application before you make the submission. Because the evaluations are done against this grid, and the evaluations are totally objective. And the best scoring applications are the ones who will be awarded a fellowship. So it makes sense to use this evaluation grid. Lastly, from my side, I also wanted to draw your attention to how our project treats fellows and applicants to the fellowship. Olga's already mentioned this right at the beginning, is that we are concerned about your digital security, so we never share any private data about you. Your applications are confidential. If you're successful to be awarded a fellowship, we always treat the fellows with the principle of do no harm. We know that many fellows often work on sensitive topics in sensitive areas, and we never want a fellow to be exposed to risk which is unnecessary. So anyone who's awarded a fellowship, we're always open to discuss any possible modification to the fellowship during implementation because sometimes circumstances change. But we want to give you this confidence as a project that we work closely with fellows and we want you to feel comfortable and safe when you're if you are successful to become a fellow. Um, I have to sadly remind you that there are about 85% of all applications which fail, and very often they fail because they're not eligible, very often because the objective is not clear and not realistic. Very often applicants fail because they cannot demonstrate that they have experience or motivation or it's realistic what they're proposing to do, or that your beneficiaries are too vague or unreachable as far as the evaluation committee is concerned. So you need to make sure you don't want to be one of those people failing. So address these things. Now, as I mentioned, the timeline is open. The applications are open until the 11th of September. So you have plenty of time to complete your applications. And as we've said at the beginning of this webinar, we are able, if we can't answer questions today in the webinar, we're also available to respond to clarification questions by email. So you have plenty of time to develop your fellowship. And if you're developing a fellowship which is time sensitive in terms of when you want to do your activities, we hope that we will be awarding fellowships at the end of the year in December so that you'll be able to begin your implementation probably from January 2027 onwards. So just so you're aware of the timeline. Okay, that's the end of what I wanted to present. And I think if I ask my colleagues, I think we probably have some questions that we want to answer.
Olga and me, actually, we dealt with most of the questions. I wonder if there are a few that I saw that Olga said she's going to answer a few questions live, right? But you can go to Simon and go through the answered questions also in the Q&A. Olga?
Yes, thank you. Yes, indeed, we've tried to answer the question, especially if they are specifically referred to in the guidelines anyway. There are a few here that need a little bit kind of a broader, so for the safety of that, we will answer them live. So one of the questions here still unanswered is, if the project is accepted, will there be an interview with the person whose project idea was accepted? Will the negotiations then be conducted online or via email during the project? How will the process generally proceed during the project? So I don't know, Simon, do you want to kind of describe the whole idea? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's a very valid, very good question. The fellowships, once we award a fellowship, we then immediately start building up the relationship with the fellow. And every fellow is in a different situation, in a different country, facing different problems and constraints. So we really recognize that and we build up a personal relationship with the fellow. So there is indeed a kind of negotiation process because if you're awarded a fellowship, you will be asked to sign a fellowship agreement, which is like a contract. And the details of that contract are mostly what you put into your application form. But from time to time, there's a need to fine tune some activities, to fine tune the budget. So there is a little bit of negotiation, but it's all done through a discussion with you as an awarded fellow. We might also be in contact with you to have a meeting. I wouldn't call it an interview. It might be to have a discussion because if we're not sure that you have some activities which we feel perhaps are not feasible, or perhaps they are activities which might be dangerous, or for other reasons. So we might ask to have a discussion with you just to talk about it so we can better understand the intention and whether you would be happy to slightly modify what you are going to do. Those kinds of discussions, I mean, they are done through email, they are done through Zoom meetings, online meetings, and indeed they are done using English. As I mentioned, it is a requirement to have a working knowledge of English. We're an international regional project and we use English as our working language. Your fellowship agreement is written in English. You need to understand it all. So English is our working language. So you do need to be able to communicate with us in English. Once you sign your fellowship agreement and you start your fellowship, then all of our support processes kick in, and we will be having regular monitoring calls with you. These are usually done online and regular kind of coaching calls. So across our team, we have a lot of experience and expertise, and we're here to talk you through the implementation of your fellowship project. I hope that
Thank you,
answers.
Simon. Maybe just as a small follow-up, there is another question. There was a question previously, if I'm to conduct capacity building activities to my own community, do I still need to prove that I speak English? And I explained what you have just said, that communication with us. But there is a follow-up question. And when the participants in the training held during the project period are from my own country, should I speak to them in English? Should they be from the English-speaking community, or can they communicate in their own language, or is it mandatory for them to know English? So.
No, the capacity for you as a fellow to use English is purely to speak with us in the project and to speak with fellows in other countries. But for your community, for the beneficiaries of your fellowship, you communicate with them the best way that you know how, in whatever language you use. That's how you communicate with them.
Yeah.
We have
reporting
we have
also
a
will
fellow,
be in English to us.
yeah, we have a fellow who works with people who have no hearing and uses Armenian Sign Language to talk with them. So you know how best to communicate with your community. That's how you should do it. But to us, the project, we need English.
Thank you. I will take the next one if you do not mind. There is another question. So, and I'm planning to propose the awareness raising activities and content production on the topics which are contributing to positive social change. The beneficiaries in this case are not easily targeted. Please advise if this could work. I'm going to take this question because I've got a degree in journalism and media management. It's like now co-managing the ComLabs campaign. So this is definitely my question. So when it comes to communication and awareness raising, specific targeting is one of the key criteria to understand the impact of your potential communication and the outreach, the potential outreach. I would say, well, let's start with the impact. So I understand it's a challenge to target this. However, this is exactly what you need to think about. Basically, any too broad idea of that we're going to target everyone in my country means that your impact going to be low, and this is where you're going to lose the points in terms of the feasibility and potential impact of your action, even though, yes, of course, awareness raising with a specific call for action stuff are absolutely eligible. I hope this answers your question. I'll be happy to add a couple of the links afterwards here to this question in writing on the targeting audience and how to identify your target audience.
Thank you, Iryna.